The dumbest person in the room always thinks they are the smartest. And here's the terrifying part. You might be that person right now and have absolutely no idea. Your incompetence hides itself from your own awareness. This is not an insult. This is science. In 1999, two psychologists at Cornell University discovered something that explains why your most confident coworker is usually wrong, why politicians speak with certainty about things they don't understand, and why you've probably overestimated your own abilities in ways that have already cost you. Confidence without competence. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, and once you understand it, you'll never see human intelligence the same way again. Today, we're going to explore why the least capable among us are often the most certain, how this cognitive bias shapes everything from your workplace to your relationships, and most importantly, how to know if you are the fool who thinks they are wise. The invisible trap. Imagine you're taking a test. You finish early feeling confident. You're certain you aced it. Then the results come back, you failed miserably. But here's what's strange. Even after seeing your score, a part of you still believes the test was flawed, not you. This is the invisible trap of incompetence. The trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure, and the intelligent are full of doubt. David Dunning and Justin Kruger didn't just discover that unskilled people overestimate themselves. They discovered something far more disturbing. The very skills you need to recognize competence are the same skills you need to be competent. If you're bad at logic, you can't recognize good logic. If you're bad at humor, you can't tell when your jokes aren't funny. If you're bad at critical thinking, you can't see the holes in your own reasoning. The incompetent are double cursed. They make mistakes, and they lack the ability to recognize those mistakes. Double cursed. It's like being colorblind, but convinced you see every shade perfectly. But this leads us to something even more disturbing about how this trap actually works in your brain. Mount Stupid. Psychologists mapped human confidence against actual knowledge, and what they found became infamous. They call it Mount Stupid. When you know nothing about a subject, your confidence is low. Makes sense. But the moment you learn just a little bit, you shoot straight to the peak of confidence. You've read one article about economics, and suddenly you're ready to debate Nobel laureates. You've watched 3 YouTube videos about psychology, and now you're diagnosing everyone around you. This is where dangerous decisions are made. At the peak of Mount Stupid, you have just enough knowledge to feel like an expert, but nowhere near enough to recognize your own ignorance. Then something happens. As you learn more, your confidence crashes. This is called the Valley of Despair, where you finally realize how little you actually know. The experts, they've climbed out of that valley. Their confidence is moderate because they understand the true complexity of their field. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. If this is making you question your own confidence levels right now, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what comes next explains why this happens in the first place. Metacognition failure. Here's the mechanism that makes this effect so powerful. Metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. It's your ability to step back and evaluate your own mental processes. And incompetent people have broken metacognition. They can't see their own thinking clearly. It's like trying to read a book while your eyes are closed and being convinced the words are there. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. Darwin observed this over 150 years ago. The Dunning-Kruger research simply proved it scientifically. In their original study, students who scored in the bottom 12% estimated they'd performed in the top 38%. They weren't lying or being modest. They genuinely believed it. Their self-assessment machinery was fundamentally broken. The mirror of self-reflection shows them a distorted image. And here's what makes it worse. When these students were shown the tests of high performers, they still couldn't recognize the superior work. They lacked the very framework needed to identify excellence. But this brings us to a question that might make you uncomfortable. Are you the fool? Right now, you might be thinking, I'm not like those people. I know my limitations. But that's exactly what someone trapped in the Dunning-Kruger effect would think. Blind spot. The cruel irony is that the people most susceptible to this effect are the least likely to recognize it in themselves. So how do you know if you're the fool who thinks they are wise? Ask yourself these questions. Do you find yourself frequently frustrated that others don't understand your brilliant ideas? Do you rarely change your mind when presented with new evidence? Do you feel qualified to give advice in areas where you have limited experience? Do you dismiss experts because you think you see things they don't? 1. Frustrated others don't get you. 2. Rarely change your mind. 3. Give advice beyond your expertise. 4. Dismiss actual experts. If you said yes to these, you might be higher on Mount Stupid than you realize. The truly competent tend to be plagued by doubt. They're the ones saying, "I'm not sure," and "it's complicated." Doubt signals wisdom. And speaking of wisdom, what if I told you that this effect isn't just about individuals? Societal infection. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just a personal problem. It's become a societal epidemic. Social media has created the perfect breeding ground for confident incompetence. Everyone has a platform. Everyone has an audience. And the algorithm rewards certainty over nuance. Complexity gets no clicks. Outrage gets millions. Think about it. The most shared opinions online are usually the most extreme. The most confident voices drown out the measured ones. People with no training in epidemiology debated doctors during a pandemic. People with no understanding of economics explain inflation with absolute certainty. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. We've created a world where sounding confident is more valued than being correct, where admitting uncertainty is seen as weakness, where Mount Stupid isn't just a phase you pass through. It's a permanent residence millions have chosen to inhabit. Confidence over competence. But this leads us to something even more troubling about how expertise is perceived. The expert paradox. Here's a paradox that explains much of modern discourse. The more someone actually knows, the less confident they sound. Real experts speak in probabilities, caveats, and conditional statements. They say things like "the evidence suggests," and "in most cases," and "we're still learning." Expertise sounds uncertain because reality is uncertain. Meanwhile, the person who just discovered a topic yesterday speaks in absolutes. They have all the answers, no doubts, no hesitation. And to the untrained ear, confidence sounds like competence. This is why con artists succeed. This is why bad advice spreads faster than good advice. This is why your most confident friend is probably giving you the worst guidance. True education doesn't give you all the answers. It shows you how many questions remain. The Nobel laureate knows they're standing on the shoulders of giants, surrounded by mysteries. The person who watched a documentary thinks they've mastered the subject. Certainty is often just ignorance in disguise. But this raises an important question. Is there a way to escape this trap? The antidote. The good news is that the Dunning-Kruger effect isn't permanent. It can be overcome. The original research showed something remarkable. When incompetent participants were trained in logic, their self-assessment improved dramatically. They didn't just get better at the task, they got better at knowing how good they were. Education is the antidote. Not just learning facts, but learning how to think. Learning to recognize quality. Learning to evaluate your own reasoning. I know that I know nothing. Socrates understood this millennia ago. True wisdom begins with acknowledging your own ignorance. Here's your practical framework. First, seek feedback from people more skilled than you. Not praise, honest, critical feedback. Second, study the work of masters in your field. Don't just consume it, analyze why it's excellent. 1. Seek critical feedback from experts. 2. Study work of masters deeply. 3. Deliberately find your blind spots. Third, deliberately look for evidence that you're wrong. The instinct is to confirm what we already believe. Wisdom comes from actively challenging yourself. Challenge your assumptions. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that most people miss. Intellectual humility. The ultimate escape from Mount Stupid isn't just knowledge, it's intellectual humility. This is the genuine recognition that your beliefs might be wrong, your knowledge might be incomplete, and others might see things you've missed. Humility. Intellectual humility isn't weakness, it's strength. It takes courage to say, "I don't know," It takes security to change your mind publicly. It takes wisdom to value truth over ego. The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. Research shows that intellectually humble people learn faster, make better decisions, and have stronger relationships. They're not pushovers. They simply prioritize being correct over being perceived as correct. Here's a test. When was the last time you changed a significant opinion based on new evidence? When was the last time you said, "You know what, I was wrong about that"? If those moments are rare, you might be trapped on the mountain. The path down from Mount Stupid is paved with these moments. Admissions of error, updates to beliefs, recognition of limits, growth through humility. And this connects to something even deeper about human psychology, the ego's defense. Why is it so hard to admit incompetence? Because your ego has defense mechanisms. Your brain is wired to protect your self-image at all costs. Admitting you're bad at something feels like admitting you're bad as a person. Your ego would rather be wrong than feel inferior. This is why people double down when proven wrong. This is why criticism feels like attack. This is why we surround ourselves with people who confirm our beliefs rather than challenge them. The Dunning-Kruger effect persists not just because we can't see our incompetence, but because we don't want to see it. Breaking through this requires separating your worth as a person from your competence in any single area. You can be intelligent and wrong about something. You can be capable and have blind spots. You can be valuable and still need to learn. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Your ego's defense is also your prison. Release the ego. But this brings us to the final piece. What all of this means for your life starting today. The way forward. So here's where you stand. You now understand a cognitive bias that affects every human brain, including yours. You know about Mount Stupid and why the incompetent feel most confident. You understand why expertise sounds uncertain and ignorance sounds certain. You have tools to recognize and escape the trap. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. What will you do differently starting now? Will you pause before speaking with certainty? Will you seek feedback that challenges rather than confirms? Will you say, "I don't know" more often? Will you celebrate being wrong because it means you learned something? 1. Pause before speaking with certainty. 2. Seek challenging feedback. 3. Embrace saying, "I don't know." 4. Celebrate being wrong as learning. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't something you defeat once. It's something you navigate forever. Every time you enter a new domain, you'll climb Mount Stupid again. The difference is now you'll recognize the view. Awareness is the first step toward wisdom. The fool thinks they are wise. The wise person knows they're still a fool learning. Which one will you choose to be? Choose wisdom daily. The Dunning-Kruger effect reveals something uncomfortable about human nature. Our brains are built to deceive us about our own abilities. The less we know, the more certain we feel. The more we learn, the more we doubt. This isn't a design flaw to curse. It's a pattern to recognize and transcend. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Every expert you admire climbed down from Mount Stupid. Every wise person you respect learned to distrust their own certainty. Every genuinely intelligent individual carries doubt as a companion, not an enemy. The question isn't whether you've been on Mount Stupid. You have. We all have. The question is whether you're willing to descend. Whether you're brave enough to say, "I might be wrong." Whether you value truth more than the comfort of false confidence. Truth over comfort. If you made it this far, comment descending if you're ready to climb down from Mount Stupid. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this changed how you see your own mind, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more explorations of the psyche.